Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Maybe by your parents or friends. Maybe they were right and you had bitten off more than you can chew, or made a poor decision. But maybe they were wrong, and with a heart full of determination you proved them wrong. This can be seen in the case of women in the military. Initially, women were seen in the military as nurses, and were able to see the terrors of war firsthand, but weren't able to fight. But some women wanted to do more than just care for the wounded. They wanted to stand up and fight for their country just as much as any man did. During the Revolutionary War, Deborah Sampson truly showed just how much women are capable of when she concealed her gender for almost 2 years in order to take part in the Revolutionary War. Deborah Sampson was born on December 17, 1760, to a poor Massachusetts family. When she was young, Sampson's father left his family behind. Unable to support Deborah and her siblings on her own, Sampson's mother, Deborah Bradford, sent her children to live with close friends of hers. It can be inferred that Sampson learned to read while she lived in the home of Mary Prince Thatcher, who likely wanted Sampson to read Bible verses to her. Though she had a rough start, Deborah Sampson overcame her struggles and was able to have a lasting effect on how women were viewed during her time period and set the stage for the government's future approval of women joining the military.
I've always had to teach people everywhere I went in the military how to treat me. And as long as I did the right thing, as long as I worked hard, as long as I was fair and emotionally stable, then the respect would eventually come. And it did. This is what I present to the world. And so based on the lens that you see me through, everybody's not like that. But yes, I do feel like I've had to work twice as hard to be half as good.
In 1782, Deborah Sampson attempted to enlist in the Army for the first time under the name Timothy Thayer. However, she was not enlisted since she was recognized by someone while filling out her enlistment paperwork. She also failed to meet up with her company at the scheduled time and had to pay back the money she had been paid upon enlisting. Later that year, she enlisted again under the name Robert Shirtliff. This time, she was successful and was assigned to a unit of 50 to 60 men. She was able to keep her identity a secret for nearly 2 years. During this time, she refused to get medical treatment for wounds in fear that her identity would be exposed. In one case, she had 2 bullet wounds in her leg and a gash on her forehead. Despite her disagreement, she was taken to a hospital where her injury to her forehead was treated. However, she left the hospital before her bullet wounds could be treated and ended up taking out one of the bullets herself, but the other had gone in too deep for her to remove. Because of this, she was unable to remove the second bullet, which was never removed from her leg, and therefore never fully healed. Her true identity was finally revealed when she was being treated for an epidemic at a hospital and lost consciousness. Though other women who attempted to enlist in the military were often scolded for their behavior, Sampson received an honorable discharge and her pension for her time in the war. After her honorable discharge, Sampson continued her life as a normal woman at that time would. She married Benjamin Gannett and had 3 children. Her actions led to many other women wanting to fight for their country. She showed that women were just as capable of fighting in battles as men, if not more capable.
We have the abilities to do what anybody else can do. The opportunity for growth is there. I think that the military does respect women so much more because I think the military now understands the contributions and they appreciate the contributions.
Sampson's extreme bravery and persistence can still be seen today in the women who enlist in the military. The initial group of women in the military were nurses that were a part of the Army Nurse Corps, which was created in 1901. However, female nurses were needed during war times as far back as the Revolutionary War in 1776. Nurses held a large responsibility in the military, as keeping soldiers healthy and treating the many wounded is not something to be taken lightly. Besides tending the sick, they scrubbed floors, laundered linen, prepared meals, and managed medical and food supplies. Loretta Walsh was the first woman to be allowed to take part in the military. She was enlisted in the U.S. Naval Reserve in 1917. She served as a yeoman, or yeomanette, and was the first of 13,000 World War I yeoman females entitled to receive the same benefits and responsibilities as men, including identical pay.
I was the first group of women to be stationed on an aircraft carrier. So before I was able to get on aircraft carrier, it was only men on carriers that went out to sea. Women could be on destroyers and other smaller ships, but never the aircraft carrier where they actually had the planes flying in and out. I was one of 5 females, and there was 500 men that worked the flight deck, and there was 500 women total on our ship and 5,000 men on the ship. Yeah, I felt like overall every day as a female you proved yourself. Like I had to prove that I earned that position.
Opha May Johnson was the first woman to enlist in the United States Marines. The 39-year-old was allowed to enlist in 1918 in order to encourage more men to enlist. She was very successful and was the highest-ranked woman in her time. She was on active duty until 1919, when she was said to have been put in a better clerical job. She worked as a civil servant for the Marine Corps until her retirement in 1943. She died in 1955 and did not have a burial marker in place. In 2018, the Women Marines Association had raised enough money to place a marker at her burial site in Washington, D.C. Esther McGowan Blake was the first woman to enlist in the United States Air Force. Blake enlisted at age 51 in the first hour of the first day that the Air Force allowed women to enlist. Both of her sons had been in the Air Force, and when Blake heard that they went missing, she felt it was her duty to enlist. By rising to action, she made a major contribution to the United States military. Months later, her sons were found and the family was reunited. Blake continued to work for the United States Air Force until her death in 1979. Though women had served in the United States Coast Guard as lighthouse keepers since 1830, 19-year-old twin sisters Genevieve and Lucille Baker were the first uniformed women in the United States Coast Guard, after they were transferred from the Naval Coastal Defense Reserve during World War I. Throughout World War I, women mostly contributed to the war effort through their volunteering with military groups, including the YWCA, and educating people about the war. Women also helped out during this war by filling in for men's jobs. During World War II, many women held clerical roles or served as nurses. During this time, women also aided in the production of ships, aircraft, vehicles, and weaponry, while the men who would normally build this machinery were in combat. Though relatively little official data exists about female Vietnam War veterans, the Vietnam Women's Memorial Foundation estimates that approximately 11,000 military women were stationed in Vietnam during the conflict.
When I was assigned to U.S. CENTCOM in June 2008, I was offered a first sergeant position. And up until that point, CENTCOM had never had a diamond wearing, my rank has a diamond, okay, because I'm an E8 first sergeant, which is a leadership position, had never had a female in that position. And they let me know right away, you know, you're making history for CENTCOM. They've never had a female first sergeant, and it was really one of the best jobs that I ever had, so.
The Women's Armed Services Integration Act was passed in 1948 under President Harry Truman. Though it had opposition at first, the act had the support of many, including Secretary of Defense and future President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Senate resolved to revise the act, and it was presented again as the Women's Armed Services Reserve Act of 1948. The revised act reached the House floor and was passed on to the Senate. The first time that it reached the Senate, it was rejected, but upon its second entry in May, it was unanimously approved and was signed by Truman on June 12, 1948. My topic, Deborah Sampson, a woman in the military and other firsts for females in the military, relates to the theme Breaking Barriers in History, since Sampson was a trailblazer for women who want to break down gender stereotypes and show people just how capable women are. Being a highly disciplined soldier and putting her life and health in jeopardy in order to protect her identity and continue fighting is encouraging to women who want to join the military. It shows that women will do anything in order to stand up for what they think is right and won't back down when they believe in something.
Kind of, but you appreciate the little luxuries, like my sleeping situation, you know, with 50 women in one room, our racks were 3 high, so you had 6 people in the little corner. And us trying to all get dressed in the morning, and I mean, you shared every single space.
In summation, female representation in the military is very important and would not have been possible without the bravery and hardworking spirit of women including Deborah Sampson, Loretta Walsh, Opha May Johnson, Esther McGowan Blake, Genevieve and Lucille Baker, and the many nurses who served throughout military history. These women are an inspiration to all and demonstrate the strength and perseverance that women possess.